Hey guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. Fedora Friday number 27. Fedora Friday number 27. Hopefully you guys are having a good week. Yeah, we'll just keep stacking these up, right? We should have a pretty fun one today. This one's probably I gotta thank Nathan yet again. I seem like a broken record here, thanking Nathan continuously for all the suggestions. But yeah, this is definitely one of those great hat movies, and it's been a while since I've seen it. So, it was fun to kind of break that out and kind of take another gander here from a hat lens, right? So yeah, we'll see if anybody hops in today, and yeah, we'll get right into the some of the photos at some point here soon. Yeah, again, classic movie. This is like one of the most quotable, I think, Western movies, right? I think that was an interview that I seen fairly recently with Kurt Russell. He was explaining why, I guess, Tombstone and Wyatt Earp were movies that came out at the same time, but Tombstone seems to get a lot more love. And I think he basically just kind of distinguished that it just seemed like Tombstone had a lot more quotable lines, right? People seem to remember it. Obviously, I'm Your Huckleberry, right? Val Kilmer, and we'll get into some of those photos. You know what? Let's just break these out. This will probably be another short show. Hey, what's up? The Tuckster. How you doing, Nathan? Again, thank you for the suggestion. Hopefully, you enjoy some of the photos. Again, I'm no expert on the Western hat, right? So, like, I do own a couple cowboy hats that don't really fit me. One's too small, one's way too big. And this is kind of like a pork pie slash gambler. It has a kind of a Western style rope band. So I figured I throw this one on. It's been a while since I put it on. So yeah, welcome, Nathan. We'll get right into the photo show, and like I said, hopefully, if anybody hops on, I'll be able to welcome him in. Hopefully, if you're waiting a little bit long, it's just that I haven't noticed you come into the room. But yeah, this is one of those movies that's actually based on real historic events, right? Obviously, a lot of folks are familiar with the history behind the gunfight at the OK Corral. This is kind of like, it's a lot of the characters, or I want to say maybe the majority of the characters, are based on real life figures, right? Obviously, a lot of folks have heard of Wyatt Earp, right? The popular lawman, gunslinger, right? And this kind of follows like the post Civil War frontier like rush, right? The silver was found in Tombstone, Arizona. So a lot of folks were flocking, um, out west. And Tombstone was one of those popular destinations for silver, right? And it follows the story of Wyatt Earp, packing up, with his family to head out west. And then we'll just go through some of these, and again, I don't think the hat that Wyatt, the Kurt Russell, who plays Wyatt Earp in the movie, is as accurate. That's what I've heard from folks on the Fedora Lounge and things like that. And it seems like it might not be based on some of the photos I've seen. Doesn't matter though. I mean, it's a great looking hat. I don't know who designed these hats. They were custom hats, as far as my research tells me. But yeah, I won't dwell on that too much, other than I'll just keep showing some photos here, and that way you guys get a flavor. For me, it, like, when I see this, and you can see maybe a little bit here in some of the brim binding, and you guys know I'm a big fan of brim binding. It kind of looks like one of the Undertaker hats, and I don't know if that's a formal hat designation. But you guys maybe can share that with me if you guys know better. But yeah, I just like, okay, the Undertaker hat, and you guys may or may not be fans of professional wrestling, but the Undertaker, the professional wrestler, longtime professional wrestler, wore a very similar hat. So I always call it the Undertaker hat. So you can see kind of the big stash on Kurt Russell, right? One of those like really longtime actors, just been in so many movies, and in iconic. Sometimes I think he doesn't get enough praise for his body of work, but it's extensive. He's been in there with the best of the best. So does a great job playing Wyatt Earp. For a lot of folks, he is the best Wyatt Earp, right? You have, I think, Henry Fonda, and as well as Kevin Costner, that portrayed Earp on film. And Nathan says, not sure if I could pull off a completely flat brim. Yeah. You know, it's one of those things where I'm like, Kurt Russell doesn't have the reputation of being like the biggest guy, right? He's like a medium frame. But yeah, he does pull it off, right? So maybe maybe you're not giving yourself enough credit, Nathan. Maybe you could pull it off. You know, I don't know if I'd be as daring, but you know, if I looked at like if I looked like Kurt Russell, maybe I would be. But yeah, just amazing attire. Obviously, again, I'm no history buff. I gotta assume that first of all, the wardrobe in the movie is impeccable. I couldn't tell you how accurate it would be, you know, compared to what they were wearing, but it's, you know, very stylish. So you can see here kind of more of a full body shot here. And I just love this outfit, you know, and again, everything just fits together. And you can see here, this is Tombstone, Arizona. Again, like the site of like the silver rush, I guess, so to speak, in Arizona. And, you know, Wyatt Earp kind of came out there with, you know, try to get a piece of that. So we'll just keep showing some more photos here. That way you guys get a flavor of some of the outfits and the hats in this movie. And there's a chalk ton of them. You know, there's no way I'm going to be able to cover everything in here, but it's a really crazy good cast. And we'll get into some of those guys in a little bit. Can see here some different angles of that outfit, you know, again, with the big stash and the big black flat brim is just amazing. Cuts a very striking figure. And like I said, from what I understood, that it was, even though this might not have been a hat that Wyatt Earp favored, it did make the character stand out a lot more. And I got to agree with that. So, you know, again, I'm not one of those sticklers. I mentioned this before. I'm not one of those sticklers for accuracy where everything has to be completely accurate or it's bunk. You know, I am okay with folks taking liberties with the storyline and with the attire, things like that, to make things a lot cooler, right? I mean, it's okay. Like I said, for the history buffs, you know, I respect you, but you know, I am okay with some deviations. See here another angle, and again, the matching brim trim for me, I don't think I've ever noticed. And again, I don't think I've watched this as kind of a budding hat nerd, but just noticing the brim trim on on Wyatt Earp's hat it just made me smile, because again, I do love brim trim, you know, in contrasting colors as well as the matching color. Can see here some more different angles here on Kurt Russell here as Wyatt Earp. And again, just a beautifully shot movie here. I think this, in the lighting here, you can see a little bit more of that brim trim, right? That matching brim trim. You get a little bit more of that top of that crown. Just really beautiful hat, you know. I mean, I don't know who made the hats for the movie. You know, we've talked about some of those details, and when we are able to find them out. But if anybody does know, definitely share that in the comments. You know, that way we can kind of give them credit. So yeah, just beautiful, beautiful hats. Again, this is kind of a side angle here. Again, Kurt Russell's not a huge guy, but he just strikes us. It's a striking figure, right? I do love the long coat, the all black outfit. It does give him kind of that menacing, like, don't mess with me kind of attitude that you would kind of connote with somebody like Wyatt Earp, right? Kind of a badass. And then obviously Wyatt Earp did not show up alone. You know, he had his two brothers with him. You know, you got I guess older brother Virgil Earp, played by the great Sam Elliott. Again, we've given props to Sam Elliott. He's one of those guys whose voice and look, you know, just command, right? It commands your attention. And this is no different. So obviously stellar cast there. And obviously, not to be outdone, we also have the late, great Bill Paxton as Morgan, younger brother Morgan Earp. Nathan says Tom Hurt is the maker of Tombstone hats. Yeah. Now, I'm not familiar with Mr. Hurt, but if you guys are, then, you know, that's awesome. Yeah, I've not heard the name, but again, there's a lot of things I don't know. Nathan says, according to the infallible Google, that's right, exactly. Just like Chat GPT, Google's never wrong. Obviously, we know that's not correct, but again, we do these things and we always try to just put the disclaimer out there, right? So some of this stuff is generated by Chat GPT, some of these quote unquote facts, right? But you can never put too much weight on any of that stuff, right? It's only as good as the information it's based on. So but yeah, you can see here the Earp brothers, with the one of the deputies of the town, kind of showing them around and giving them the who, what, where, and why, right? So yeah, so we'll just keep going with the stills, but just I just love the outfits on all of this. Obviously, you got the derby style hat on the deputy, and I forget his name, but he was one of the lawmen. Obviously, not a young guy, so he's probably not getting his hands too dirty. But yeah, we will meet some of the other lawmen in the film. In addition to the brothers, they did come with their lady friends, I guess I'm going to call them, if not their wives, right? And again, you can see some of the hats on the females here. I don't remember. Yeah, some great stashes. I agree. We talked about doing a hats and beards. I don't know how well I would do in hats and beards. Right, I still haven't shaven. I'll try to hold on to this for a little bit, I guess, is again some of the laziness, as I mentioned before. But yeah, great stashes, and then you got some great hats on females here, right? This is a shot here, obviously. Again, I couldn't tell you how accurate this is. I gotta assume that it is accurate. But yeah, I think it's just a great photograph, and you can see the lady next to Wyatt Earp. I believe her name is Maddie, and that becomes, I guess, another kind of source of conflict there because, well, Wyatt Earp does end up falling in love with another woman, and we'll get to that in a little bit. In addition to his Earp brothers, we also have Doc Holliday. And man, I gotta tell you, what can you say about Val Kilmer, right? Stubble is looking good. I appreciate it, Nathan. You're so supportive. I appreciate it. um, but yeah, Val Kilmer, man. In terms of quarterback, obviously I mentioned "I'm Your Huckleberry," right? That's a line from Doc Holliday, and man, to say that Val Kilmer killed it is an understatement. Now, again, don't know how accurate, right? It's hard to imagine that the real Doc Holliday was as charming and witty, and kind of just cool as a cucumber, right? He just always had everything down, like Val Kilmer. It just seemed like it wasn't like Val Kilmer always struck me as this kind of guy, right? He's one of the guys that kind of just will look at you and you kind of know that the wheels are turning and he's thinking stuff. He kind of does a great job of acting with his facial expressions. So also the late great Val Kilmer. Yeah, that's a real brim treatment for Holiday. Agreed. And we'll show some more photos of that because we talked about when we did the Johnny Depp show, we saw that curled lip, and in some of the shots, I'm getting that curled kind of brim lip on Doc Holliday's hat, right? So I think the majority of the time we see him in a gambler. I don't think this is a gambler, but we'll see some of you can see that right there, right? And obviously you can see the face, right? The real Doc Holliday did suffer from tuberculosis, and they do capture that here in the film. So you can see him throughout the film looking very jaundiced, right? Very yellow-faced. Almost looks like Data from Star Trek Next Generation, right? And you can see that brim curl, right? That one brim curl. And we saw a little bit of that with that Johnny Depp hat that we had focused on I guess last week, right? So really cool. I don't think I noticed that as much. And I'm looking at this photo, you can see some brim trim here as well, right? I mean, it's actually a pretty sizable matching brim trim. Again, very, very large size brim. And Val Kilmer also is not a very, very large man, but it just looks good. And it's got the pencil mustache. And obviously, Doc Holliday does not let the his tuberculosis interfere with one being charming and witty, as well as like drinking and doing his gambling, both of which Doc Holliday, real Doc Holliday, was known for. Right, he was a great gunslinger and also a renowned gambler, and also really good friends with Wyatt Earp. So that kind of rounds out kind of like the four-man crew. But yeah, like I said, Doc Holliday, I think, Val Kilmer steals the movie, I think, throughout. Every time he's on there, he just has, like I said, an effortless cool, right? It's kind of one of those things like Elaine Delon, effortless cool. Humphrey Bogart, he just has that kind of charisma, and this was a great vehicle for him. And look at this. I mean, what more can I say? Again, I couldn't tell you if the real Doc Holliday was this stylish. I doubt he was this stylish, but hey, I love it. You guys know I'm a big fan of like that red, and this is, I don't know, it's not like almost like a bordering on wine colored vest that he has on here. It just looks really good. You got the leather shoulder holster. Amazing, amazing outfit. You know. There's kind of a black and white photo of Doc with Wyatt on horseback. I believe this is during the Vendetta ride. Just amazing. And here you got Doc with his love interest, right? So, this is his ride or die girl, who helps him out while he's gambling and swindling other folks out of their money, and she's always got his back. And I just love this photo. Really, really sharp. Here's another black and white photo. You can see a little bit of a hat tilt on Doc Holliday. And again, you see kind of the hat switching up in various angles on Doc, and they all kind of look good, right? I'd imagine if you had tuberculosis and you're going to be sweating most profusely, like you see Doc, that hat can kind of wear. So he's probably shifting it around. So for me, I'm like, that kind of rings true to the character. So that's always nice. You can see it kind of up close. You can see that jaundiced face look and that hat tilt on Doc. I don't know if this is from the movie. It looks like it's probably one of those outtakes, but it's a really good shot. Love this. This is Doc Holliday in gambling action, right? With his flame right there alongside him. Again, he always has that look on his face, like he knows something you don't, right? And I love that. Again, after swindling somebody in a card game, you know, and again, effortless cool. He's not worried in the least bit. Again, Val Kilmer was amazing. Nathan says the hat maker will make a beaver replica for you, $895. Oh wow, yeah, that's pretty good, I think, for a beaver replica. Yeah, that's not too bad. I mean, I don't know if that's something that I'd be willing to pony up right away, but from based on what I know, that seems like not a half bad price. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Nathan. And Nathan had added, that's a real brim treatment for Holiday. Yeah, that does look accurate based on the photos that I've seen. So yeah, let's see if we got any more. Yeah, I just couldn't stop on the photos. You can see here, kind of like the hat on the back. It's probably a little because it's a dark hat and kind of a dark background, but you can see he's wearing it kind of Frank Sinatra style, right? The back of I call it Frank Sinatra style on the back of the head, the crown of the head. And again, you can see the sweat on his face. Again, that's probably partly to do with why he's keep shifting that hat. But yeah, it just looks good. See here again, another sweaty forehead, a little bit of a hat tilt, And again, you can see a little bit of that brim treatment here on this side here. Just great job with this role. And again, the late great Val Kilmer. Look at this. Again, I just love this. Again, this is actually in a better light, so you're able to see that brim curl, I guess. Yeah, amazing. And I just keep shuffling through the photos. I got a decent number of photos, and I don't want to kind of belabor. You guys at home can kind of, you know, pause it at your leisure, and and take some of these photos in. Um, Again, here's a kind of a action scene. Looks like that. I think this is Curly Bill, but I could be wrong. And we'll get to Curly Bill in a little bit. And here you got Morgan and Wyatt meeting up with Doc Holliday. At least that look, yeah, that's Doc Holliday. Yeah. You can see kind of that from the angle from the back. Hey, Josh, Doc's hats get made a lot. Yeah, I'd imagine, like I said, even though this film is full of a lot of quotables, I think a lot of folks kind of, agree that Doc Holliday kind of steals this movie, right? So I imagine that his hat, given how unique it is probably widely requested. Yeah, and I mean, I think it looks good. It's one of those things like, and we talked about it before, when somebody doesn't have a huge figure but is able to wear a wide brim hat and then pull it off, it kind of gives you a little bit more confidence. Like, hey, maybe I could do that. And then obviously, crew shot. We've talked about that, like movies with the Untouchables. You're gonna get shots like this, and you gotta love the outfits, man. I wouldn't want to go and face the group like this, right? And you can see probably the first shot so far on Virgil Earp's, played by Sam Elliott, his wide brim hat. And again, he's also not a huge guy, and he pulls it off really nicely. I think for Sam Elliott just pulls off the Western look like nobody's business. And then Bill Paxton as well. I mean, Bill Paxton's probably got the biggest frame out of all the guys here, but he's not super huge. And man, look at that! Just looks amazing. Awesome crew shot. We got tons of crew shots here, and I tried to at least sample a few of them. That way, you guys get a feel. And then again, look at Doc Holliday. Again, the smallest guy in terms of stature in the group, but just you got to see, he just stands out, right? I love it. Another crew shot here. Get to see some more angles of the hats. Again, look at that brim on Virgil Earp, right? Sam Elliott, amazing. And then the two flat brims, right? We talked about, Nathan mentions, like, I don't know if I could pull off that super flat wide brim. I agree. Same here, but they do make it look good. Josh says this movie restarted the Western reenactment craze. Yeah. I mentioned earlier that, Wyatt Earp, right? I think Kevin Costner and Wyatt Earp came out right around the same time as this movie. So I guess it was just a big thing in Hollywood at the time, the big craze. And, we came out with some really good movies, I think, right? I mean, there's a lot of good Westerns, Western style, right? I mean, for some folks, they were like, that's not really a Western, but, these more modern movies. But for me, they're every bit as good, and then you get some of the recognizable cast, right? Some of them had just tremendous cast, just like this film. And you got to love that. This is kind of an early scene in the movie. You got the Earp brothers meeting up with Doc Holliday, and then you got the guy in the background. And I'm trying to remember what he wore. It kind of seemed like it was a derby. It might have been something else. It's hard to tell here. But, right away, Wyatt Earp this guy's causing trouble in one of the saloons. Wyatt Earp goes in, takes care of him, slaps him up a bit, scares him out, throws him out of the saloon, and then essentially cuts a side deal with the saloon owner, right, to take 25% of the cut. And then the guy goes and shows up with a shotgun, and then thinks twice once he realizes that he's dealing with Wyatt Earp and his brothers. Just really good scene at it, kind of one telling the viewer about Wyatt Earp's reputation, even as way out in Tombstone, and the kind of fear that it struck. We got Bill Paxton as Morgan Earp. Again, Bill Paxton, man, what, like, also very underrated actor, you know. I remember Bill Paxton from way back in Weird Science, right? The older brother Chet, right? And then you kind of had some I guess silly roles. I think he was also had a bit role in the Terminator, right? He was one of the guys in the original Terminator, right? That got they got confronted right as the Terminator, got into the touchdown in the past, I guess, right? He came from the future. So yeah, to watch Bill Paxton's rise, to become kind of a really serious actor is just amazing. You can see here again, get some more angles. This one's probably a little blurrier, but you can see Morgan Earp, who does end up passing away in the movie. You can see he's obviously writhing in pain here, but you get another shot of that gray, wide brim, flat brim. Here you got Sam Elliott. Again, you get a side angle of that brim treatment. You can see that slope on that brim. Just really good stuff, man. It's one of those, it's one of those movies that you're like, all right, if I'm going for the Western style, this gives you a lot of ideas, right? To kind of how you want to maybe experiment with your Western look. And we'll just keep these going because, man, there's a lot of photos. This is more of an up close shot of Virgil Earp. Again, interesting collar. I love that. Looks really, really sharp. Man, I mean, what can you say? Sam Elliott, right? And always got his stash game on point. He's Morgan and Virgil, right? And you can see that super wide brim on Virgil. Yeah, love it. Here's Wyatt and Morgan. Obviously, Morgan's been injured, right? Yeah, and yeah, it's just a pretty good action scenes, right? And that's one of the things that the movie does take liberties with, right? So like the real gunfight at the OK Corral was probably like 30 seconds or so. Not the drawn out scene that you see in the movie, but still, it's yeah, it's okay by me. Josh says, recommend The Alamo for the next film. Yeah, I will take a look at that. I don't even know if I've seen The Alamo, but I will check it out. If I'm able to get my hands on it, I will do that, Josh. I appreciate the recommendation. Let's see what else we got here. Kind of another crew cut. That's funny. Posse cut, posse shot, crew shot. From different angles. Again, just a lot of badassery here. And I guess just notice it kind of looks like Sam Elliott, and could be the lighting. It kind of looks, his outfit looked blue. I think in the other shots it looked black, just like the other outfits. But here it kind of coming across a little bit like it's blue. But again, more angles. And I think this might be the last crew shot here. Again, these are just like all movie poster shots, right? The crew walking menacingly. And then obviously you're not going to have any kind of good Western movie without some bad guys. And then you got here, the actual bad guys are called the Cowboys, right? And actually it's a real group that existed during this time. And you had a great performance by Powers Booth as Curly Bill Brocious. Again, more great mustaches, more great outfits, a little bit of color here on Curly, right? I do dig the red, right? Has kind of like that really cool Western vibe. And really that's the kind of premise of of the movie, right? You have these folks that are coming into the Tombstone with good intentions to get rich, but at the same time, it also attracted a lot of the no good nicks, right? The bad guys that were coming in there and trying to just basically run amok, and then get it by kind of ill-gotten means, right? Get paid via ill-gotten means, and you can see right from the get-go they kind of crash. These cowboys crash a police wedding, and end up killing most of the folks, and it kind of gives you an idea of like the lawlessness that existed at the time. So yeah, so great portrayal by Powers Booth, and we'll see if you'll see some more up close shots. You can see it's kind of a definitely that bad guy look. Just yeah, well done. And I don't know if this hat, I don't know if this hat is referred to as a gaucho, but I could be, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. This style here worn by Curly Bill, but until I get corrected, I'm going to go with gaucho. Yeah, forgive me, I'm not a big expert on the Western or the Western style hats, but yeah, really, really cool. And you can see the brim treatment here, man. It's amazing. And then obviously you have so Curly Bill seems to be, I think, the leader of the Cowboys, and then his number two guy is Johnny Ringo, who's portrayed by Michael Bain or Bean. Um, Whatever it is, Johnny Ringo is a pretty badass character, right? And one of the more famous scenes in there, besides the "I'm Your Huckleberry," is kind of like the kind of a little bit that initial standoff, right, in the saloon right here, with Johnny Ringo and Curly Bill, and then you got Wyatt and the brothers, as well as Doc Holliday. And Johnny Ringo seems to kind of have a thing, or some kind of real big legitimate beef with Doc Holliday, and Doc Holliday, ever like the charming witty guy, right? So Ringo goes into like a big gunslinging routine, and then of course Doc Holliday, not to be outdone, does the same routine but with a little tin cup, right? He finishes his drink and then does makes a show out of a tin cup, right? And just one ups Johnny Ringo, right? At that point, it was like everybody's laughing, right? Kind of disarms, the bad guys with his own wit, which again gives that character a lot more power. So yeah, shout out to Val Kilmer it's hard to imagine how many other actors could pull that as convincingly as Val. It's just amazing. It's another shot. I think it's that same scene of Johnny Ringo and Curly Bill. Another shot of Johnny Ringo. Again, you can see that kind of brim treatment, that brim curl, which seems to be kind of a signature, of the film. This is kind of one of the early scenes. This is where we talked about the wedding that the Cowboys disrupt, and you can see kind of here how cold-blooded the crew was from the get-go, right? So they basically massacred everybody. Even a priest comes out to complain, and it ends up, I think Johnny ends up shooting the priest in the head. So it kind of gives you a flavor right off the bat of how vicious the Cowboys were, and that way you knew that the Earp brothers, the Earp crew had their job cut out for them. Kind of a little bit of an up close shot. You can see a little bit of that band treatment. Really cool looking, kind of a rope treatment on top of the ribbon. Again, and then you get that brim curl. Really, really super cool. This is that same scene. So I'll get this out. Obviously, you got the shootout. The confrontation between Doc Holliday and Johnny Ringo. Obviously, Doc Holliday gets the best of him. And but yeah, just again, iconic scenes. This is one of those, like I said, westerns, and I think Kurt Russell hit the nail right in the head. It's just very memorable, right? Even the folks that have not seen the movie in a long time remember a lot of the movie. So that says a lot, I think, about how this movie, the impression that it leaves. And then again, the I guess the main love interest, right, for Wyatt Earp is Josephine Marcus, right? Wyatt Earp was actually connected to a Josephine Marcus, right? And this character is played by none other than Dana Delaney. And we've covered Dana Delaney, right, in Tulsa King, right? She's the love interest of Sylvester Stallone's The White Man Freddy, that character in Tulsa King. And you can see right off the hat, right off the bat, that there's, you know, this hat shot here. And it's just like kind of, I guess, an accurate portrayal of how like kind of show busy or show business like this lady is, right? Obviously, it's a kind of a theater actress, and just amazing. And you know, Dana Delaney is a quite, you know, strikes quite a striking figure. And yeah, she has a, you know, I guess Wyatt sees her and then starts to develop feelings for her, and that creates some tension. This is kind of an up close shot of that same scene. You see here some more scenes here. And she arrives in town with with Mr. Fabian, who's played by none other than Billy Zane. Billy Zane seems to always play these like eccentric characters, you know, and it just reminds me of like Titanic, right? Just, and it's obviously a wig, or at least I think. Right? I think Billy Zane was always bald, as far as I can remember. But yeah, he just pulls off these. It's just like the role is made for somebody like Billy Zane. So yeah, he doesn't really wear hats in the movie, but I had to call it out because, you know, it's just, you're like, hey, Billy Zane doing Billy Zane things. But you get another shot here of that outfit on Josephine. It's a kind of a up close smile. Again, just amazing shots with you know, with Josephine. Again, this one probably is not from the movie in as much as it's like a photo, like a professional photo shoot. And the main tension here is that the town sheriff, right, Sheriff Behan, also has a thing for Josephine, right, and that creates tension with Wyatt and the Earp brothers. You can see here kind of a Wyatt and Dana. And what happens is basically what comes to light is that Sheriff Behan, in many ways, is kind of colluding with the Cowboys, right? They kind of have an understanding, and the Earp brothers are kind of messing things up, right? So the way it kind of sets it up is that the Cowboys kind of more or less get to do what they want, and Sheriff Behan kind of allows it to happen to a certain extent, right? But the Earp brothers are kind of disrupting the system. So essentially, that coupled with the fact that Wyatt seems to be sweet on Josephine, kind of, you know, puts them in the crosshairs for Sheriff Behan. And you can see here when he's wearing a hat, Sheriff Behan kind of favors that derby. Really kind of sharp outfit, right? Like I think that's like a pinstripe suit. Very, very sharp dresser, that Sheriff Behan. You get here kind of a side angle, right, of Wyatt's flat brim hat and Sheriff Behan's pinstripe suit and matching derby. And we also, right, so in addition to that cast that we've already discussed, we also have Jason Priestley, right, of Beverly Hills 90210. And he plays like a deputy, right? He's like but he's kind of somebody that definitely is not necessarily like, he's not a tough guy kind of deputy, right? He's like a guy that basically is a young kid, and he definitely is, you know, colluding with Sheriff Behan and the Cowboys, right? But he does have some interesting hats, right? You can see that brim trim treatment on this hat. And I think this might be a derby, but I could be wrong. But yeah, you definitely get some decent hat action on Jason Priestley. He plays Billy Breckenridge. Again, all these characters actually did exist. I think Breckenridge, the way it's spelled in the movie, is a little different. But again, these characters were all real life characters. Here's kind of another shot, more of a, they're kind of at a theater show. And you can see Jason Priestley here with his hat. Kind of looks like it's kind of tilted, but it might just be his head angle. Kind of another shot. I can see that again, that same hat with that curl, it kind of looks just like an oversized derby, to be honest. But yeah, cool hat. Again, Jason Priestley's another guy, not too big of a guy. And these bigger hats, they don't seem completely out of place, you know. And I do love here this shot here, kind of in the of the brim treatment for Doc Holliday's hat. You got to love that. It's again, Josh mentioned that it's widely copied. I don't doubt that. It's just unique, you know. And I can't forget the late great Charleston Heston. He also has a small role here as a real life businessman and kind of big time rancher in those days, Henry Hooker, right? And he kind of has his role where essentially during like the Vendetta ride, he kind of takes in Wyatt Earp and the crew into his home. But yeah, what can you say about Charleston Heston? Again, just iconic actor. So it's nice to see him, in this role. I don't know how long after this role he passed away, but it might not have been that long. That's why I was a little bit surprised because 1993, I don't know, I guess I'm just not remembering exactly when he passed. But maybe it wasn't that long after this film. And this is just kind of a miscellaneous shot. I don't remember these characters per se, but just to give you some angles of some of the derby style hats that they showed in the film. Just really good stuff, and coupled with the outfits, man, love it, love it. Again, I don't know how accurate it was, but doesn't matter to me. It looks good. And that's really all the photos I had. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Again, shout out to Nathan for suggesting Tombstone. Again, it's one of those movies that I guess it didn't come top of mind in the initial set, but once he brought it up, I was like, yeah, why? Of course, Tombstone. So yeah, Josh, the Alamo will come forward. I will get that done. And yeah, you guys too. If you guys have any movies, that you want to see here covered on Fedora Friday, feel free to shoot me a line, drop a comment. And yeah, that has been Fedora Friday number 27 featuring Tombstone. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I'm going to say the same thing I always say, which is support all the good folks in the Good Luke's network, support all the good hat folks outside of the Good Luke's network. But even if you don't, right? Even if you choose not to support any of these fine folks, the one thing you got to do, or else we'll get Wyatt Earp after you, right? Or maybe Doc Holliday, right? He'll charm you into clicking the subscribe button. But regardless, the one thing you got to do is you got to stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day. Ciao, everybody. Ciao.